Happy National Poetry Month. I'm Alan King, and I'm going to read a few poems from my new collection, Crooked Smiling Light. Now, when this collection just came out, I released a showcase video highlighting some of the poems I already had trailers for. But this time, I'm going to read 3 more poems just to give you a taste of what's in this collection. So, first poem is What's Unsaid. Your father calls and asks you to help him order something online. He thinks it's cool that, with your account, he gets next day delivery. You laugh at how he treats it, as if instead of a membership, he's talking about the television when it first came out, when those who couldn't afford it went over to their neighbors to marvel at the monochrome moving images. The irony snaps you back. What your parents comfortably spend would throw your family's budget into crisis. Your folks who own 3 homes and considered buying another just to have it. He's a lifetime away from the skinny 20-year-old who landed here from Trinidad with his mom and 4 sisters. The guy who worked as a union electrician to pitch in with the rent. Even now, when he talks about it, he squints, watching those early years slip beyond his field of vision. So he couldn't have just called for help ordering holiday gifts, the smart scales that show your BMI and connect to your smartphone. He asked about his granddaughter, who's putting her dolls down for nap time in the living room. You both laugh when he asks if your wife is behaving, and you say, for now. That laugh takes you back to a sunny place in your childhood, those summers and winter holidays you spent lugging his work bag and running to his truck for switches and fixtures. Didn't you live for those moments in his work van, the one he bought when he left the union to start out on his own? He could imitate anyone, the racist white foreman, the other black electricians who threatened to kick his funny-sounding ass. You wanted to be every bit the playboy he was. The brother so stealth, old heads back home had him hollering at sisters for them. You laughed a lot then, only disappointed when it was time to go home. That was before he questioned you being a poet, before the insults and arguments that nearly came to blows, and the 6 months he went without talking to you. You watch your daughter painting on a table in your den before she climbs in your lap and snuggles up with a smile. That was once you, resting against your dad on his bed while he flipped through the papers, reading the real estate section. Your nearly 4-year-old listening to her grandfather on speakerphone says, Papa, I love you. A dam breaks inside you when your dad's choked voice cracks back. I love you too, sweetheart. All right, so this next poem is for my brother-in-law, Tolu, and it came from a conversation we had on a beach somewhere in LA, I can't remember. But this poem is called Stride, and it opens with an epigraph by Haile Gebrselassie. When you run the marathon, you run against the distance, not against the other runners, and not against the time. And again, that's from Haile Gebrselassie. And so this poem is Stride, and again, it's for my brother-in-law, Tolu. I don't remember when it happened, he says. All I know is one day Eli put himself to bed. You watch your brother-in-law with an envy you haven't felt since you were 16. When you learned your little brother lost his virginity before you. You remember feeling like he crossed the finish line before you started the race. Your brother far beyond the horizon of that milestone. You're just as far behind your brother-in-law, wishing you could breeze the distance to him in this full marathon called parenting. Even now, he's disappearing from your field of vision as he goes on about his kids sleeping in their rooms, while your 3-year-old holds your bedtime hostage, demanding another story, crying and jumping when you say it's sleepy time. She's taken over your California king, doing mixed martial arts in her sleep, the toddler with the elbow and knee strikes, with the jabs and overhand punches. Your bonnet-donning pajama kid tests your limits when each sleepless night leaves you like a runner at mile 20. Hunched over, gasping, glinting with sweat, muscles blazing. But this is just the starting line of a long-distance test of patience. It's how your parents must have felt, especially your poor dad. It couldn't have been easy being the only foreigner at his job, trading barbs with the other black electricians who riffed on his accent and the extra shit he got from the white foreman. It couldn't have been easy trying to keep it together, verbally sparring with guys he was smarter than, then coming home to your attitude. How many times you almost broke his patience when he nearly came out of himself to give you a piece of his mind. Luckily, he never broke his stride. And if you learned anything from him, it's enjoying small victories, even in the moments that seem hard. It's a lesson your brother-in-law takes in stride. His stories about his kids are his way of coaching you to keep running. This Crooked Day Dance. Last night our words were a fight cloud of knuckles and boot soles before you grabbed your keys and left. Said I'm sick of this shit. I wake to a vitamin B color sun whizzing through my windows. The empty passenger seat aches like a hole in my gums. My heart is a bag of stones. Is this humility, the gardener pruning our egos to let enlightenment through? Truth is a flock of finches perching on stubborn hedges that hear their crooning as jazzy mumbo-jumbo. Now I'm mumbling, stumbling through this crooked day where snow sizzles on the curb, where a fleet of pigs flies a V pattern through the clouds. Skinny trees and lampposts scissor the air with the concrete. I'm stumbling through this crooked day where the skyline's italicized, where everything leans at odd angles as though this moment were a bruised photo barely hanging to a wall, rattled by our madness. Thank you.